It's extremely important. I think probably I would appreciate equity analysis that this is the time that they spend in terms of sort of reasserting the importance of financial crime, probably maybe ensuring that we are clear that in these times, maybe the importance of financial crime is far greater than ever before. So my topic is going to be transforming financial crime compliance. I'm going to be keeping it general. And I'm going to be talking about some of the key considerations in financial crime during COVID-19. So first is the discussion that I will try and have about the way in which we are seeing the behavioral shifts and uncertainty. So by the way, obviously, we've been talking about new normal, but I'm not entirely sure as to how many of us are sure about whether we will be going back to old normal or is this new normal going to survive. So therefore, the first point is whether this behavioral shift and uncertainty is going to be a path to longevity or is actually going to be a perpetuity. Because I don't think anybody would probably disagree that this is a path to longevity. So anything more than 2 years or 1.5, 2 years would probably be a medium-term phenomenon. So whether it would prove to be a perpetuity in terms of the changes in the mindsets and in the lifestyles of people, we're probably going to be seeing this. This is extremely important from the perspective of financial crime. The reason why I'm saying this is because this is what we do. So we can't change the dynamics. We can't change the business dynamics. We can't change the individual spending and individual lifestyle dynamics, but we can adapt and we will have to respond to this change as financial crime practitioners, seeing what risks our organizations are now going to be exposed to, because we deal with these retail customers and we deal with these business customers. So this slide is actually going to be telling you as to what kind of changes we are anticipating in the retail customer segment and what could happen in the business customer segments. As we are all aware, almost like 1/3 of people in the world have seen or are seeing some form of lockdown. And there is an estimation that about 300 million people are working from home around the world. So this has coupled with social distancing. So obviously people are not willing to meet each other. So, or probably even if they are, that's probably not the interaction that we were having before. So a lot of focus of people is on digital adoption. So we are seeing the areas which were never exposed to digital adoption before. So we're basically seeing a mass shift in behavior, online transfers, payments, for groceries, education, entertainment, you name it. I mean, obviously every institution, every person and every customer would want to have preference for digital channels or for digital adoption. But this, coupled with the fact that there's seemingly a cautious spending on essential commodities, and there is a savings orientation. And then obviously there is a rising impatience. So obviously people would want to have services with consistent experience, and that is true for the financial services organizations also. But the most alarming, I would say, or even if I would want to use the softer word, this is a change that's happening, is that there is an increasing, or there is a trend for cash in circulation. So in March 2020, it reached 42%. And I'm going to talk about that in a bit. Yes, Asif, bole. Okay, good. Am I audible now? Asif, is it better now?
Yes, sir, it's better now. It's better.
Excellent. So when we talk about the business, so you could see that there are employees at risk. Obviously, we are seeing disruption and productivity challenges. There are customers at risk because we are seeing experience disruption and churn. And most importantly, organizational operations are at risk. So those institutions which are not digitally oriented or which have not followed digital path before may probably be experiencing very significant customer churn, which is the customers at risk consequential. But all of this is actually having a very serious impact together with the economic recession and economic downturn within the country and in the region and across the globe also on the earnings at risk. So we're seeing a number of supply and trade disruptions, and that is now leading towards or has led towards cash flow at risk. So we've got serious fund dependencies and liquidity challenges. And last but not the least, for certain medium and small enterprises, this is proving to be a very testing time in terms of how to, how to sustain the franchise. So therefore, the franchise at risk is probably going to be the most significant risk that these institutions are facing. So what is the relevance for financial crime is the fact that we will have to keep a tab on our customer segments and the way in which we have been dealing with these customers. So the way in which we were seeing these customers before has exponentially changed over the last 6 months or 3 or 4 months or so, and further changes are going to be expected. So customer reprofiling, both in retail segment and business segment, is absolutely key. And we're talking about millions of customers. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of customers in certain institutions. So this is a big ask, particularly considering the fact that obviously we are having some productivity challenges, work from home challenges. And, obviously, this is going to be a newer program or a transformative program that institutions may need to undertake. So now let me go to the third slide, which talks about some of the challenges that particularly SMEs are facing in Pakistan. So this is a survey which was done especially of SMEs, and you can yourself see there are three key dimensions that I would like to talk about. First is the layoffs. So, either it's a layoff or its employee salary decreases, or it is mostly associated with the risk of insolvency or the liquidity risk that we talked about earlier, the kind of relaxation that would be demanding or they are demanding in terms of making sure that their businesses remain sustainable. And then even if they are sustainable or even if they are operative, then they supply chain disruptions that are causing serious threats to their ongoing operations. So all these risks are very important for financial practitioners to understand and incorporate while they reprofile their customer segments. So this is our view on how could the COVID-19 recovery going to be looking like. So if you talk about likelihood of a U-shaped or an L-shaped recovery cycle, so this is just a question. Nobody could be sure about that. But the probability of a V scenario, which is going to be a short-term one, has significantly reduced over the last month or so, or 2 months or so. So we in our country and globally also, we are expecting that it's going to be either a U scenario or an L scenario, L having a significant period of time for recovery, or probably maybe significant uncertainty with respect to recovery, while a U-shaped scenario is going to be taking a very significant period of time for overall growth to get stabilized. Hello? Okay, अब आप लोगों को बेहतर आ रही है आवाज मेरी? Is it better now? Hello, is it better now? Is it better now?
Yes, Faraz, it's better for me. It seems from the chat that people are able to listen.
I would actually treat you as my representatives in terms of finding out whether it's better or not. All right, okay. Gentlemen, I mean, I'm trying my level best to speak as louder as I can, but let me increase the pitch of my voice a little further. So this is what I have. So now this is going to be a key consideration while you decide your financial crime strategy, not just by the way, financial crime, your business strategy as well. It's extremely important for financial practitioners to get a deep assessment engagement with businesses. It's actually like a show that's going to be run enterprise-wide. So risk people, financial crime practitioners, business representatives have to sit together to decide what strategy they are going to be putting in place for the businesses to respond, for risk to respond, and obviously conclusively or holistically for financial crime to also, tag along with the similar or the same types of responses. So very, very critical. This is an important slide because this is showing the digital adoption trend. So this is showing a very encouraging digital adoption trend as far as transactions are concerned. So let me differentiate between transactions and money in the bank accounts. So I'm not talking about the money in the accounts. I'm talking about whether I'm using branches, using paper-based, or versus the digital. So there is a significant increase in digital adoption, as you could yourself see. So my point is that previously we were focusing a lot on persuasion, which worked okay, but now there is a push. This push is age agnostic. So there is a possibility for even the older age personnel to be finding the excuse to explore digital channels, because now there is a push on a no choice basis. So this is fundamentally evident from certain global statistics that tell us that the institutions such as New Bank in Brazil and many other digital institutions have been able to onboard a large number of aged customers, who probably were not willing to joining the digital um, segments before. So this is a key trend that I'm noticing, or we are noticing in Pakistan as well. So this is the data up till March. So even till March, which essentially is like almost like a month impact or half a month impact, but even if we cross beyond March, the situation is significantly improving towards digital. And you might have heard about a number of transactions now getting routed through IBFT. Partly is because IBFTs are now almost like zero cost. So if you provide the enabling environment to people, they would go for digital. And for financial crime practitioners, it's extremely important to now identify what is their channel mix and how would they reprofile their channels and how would they reprofile, therefore, the customers that interact more with digital and less with paper-based mechanisms. So, and by the way, cash is also through ATM. So real digital is mobile banking and internet banking. ATM is quasi-digital. So now the shift is towards mobile banking and internet banking, which obviously you can see from the data that I have shown to yourselves over here. And it is improving. It is improving rapidly. It's improving much faster than it was before. Now, this is probably the most important slide from the perspective of my views on how is the industry moving towards debanking. So this is a perspective. You may agree, you may not agree. These are facts. These are the numbers. The reasons there is no point talking about the reasons about these as of now, because obviously our focus is not on diagnosing why is cash more and why is digital, why is banking less. But the trends have been showing constant increase in Pakistan's cash, and that is an area which financial practitioners, in terms of adapting, have to be considerably aware of. So you could see yourself that this is no surprise that the cash is increasing worldwide also, but by the momentum that is expected in Pakistan from January to say like April or March, that's very different as compared to the other institutions. You see the steep curve from January to March in the case of Pakistan. The curve is not that steeper in the case of the other countries. And by the way, obviously, we've got more or less like a 40+%, while the others are hovering around 3%, 2%, 10%, maximum 15%. So the difference is 10%, or maybe say like 12% from our immediate successors or immediate followers. Sorry. So the change in the cash in circulation to bank deposits is also showing a very, very insightful trend. So 7% deposit from January to March, there is a dip in increase, and 13 to 15% from June to March, from 13 to 15% in the case of currency in circulation. And if you see the last chart, the last bar on the very right of the slide, you could see that there was an increase in the incremental change, which is the positive increase or the addition to deposits, say like in January 17 or something of that sort. But then when we are now seeing the deposits going back to the level of June 2015 in terms of accretion. Well, if you see cash, there is a constant increase in cash. And now there is a very little difference between the cash and deposits. So we are now going back to a situation which we were in June 2016. So that's something that really needs to be understood well. And at the policymakers stage, obviously, we'll need to be making sure that we've got right kinds of interventions to address this issue. Now, talking about some of the financial crime, aspects. Obviously, the way in which customers are now behaving and using banking services has significantly changed. So, which means that obviously the money laundering or terrorist financing signs or alerts or symptoms will also change. And obviously we are moving towards organized crime. So when we talk about 2007 and 8 financial crisis, that indicated a strong correlation between rising crime levels and obviously such situations. We could see such situations here as well, in these conditions as well. So therefore, we need to be very sure that we are aware of what areas the organized crimes could be taking place, and make sure that we are able to address those key areas. The other and the most important aspect is the fact that you may not necessarily be relying upon the historical behaviors for customer profiling or reprofiling. So it's like a very big ask, because you do not have the data, and you may not necessarily have a lot of information of the behavior. Yet you probably would need to find out what could be the right customer reprofiling that you could do for specific customer segments or the specific customers. The other important aspect is the fact that if it normalizes, I don't know whether it normalizes or not. If it normalizes, then it is a fact that the cash is being withdrawn in various territories a lot. But when the cash moves back to banks, or when the cash moves back to digital, it could provide cover for money laundering. So we have to be very, skeptical and very sensitive to this important risk that I'm trying to highlight here. So obviously there could be many examples. For example, less than proportional cash reduction in use of cash. So when the use of cash is decreasing across certain customer segments, if you find less than proportional decrease in use of cash, this is something that would signify, the money laundering risk associated with the use of cash. And then obviously significant cash withdrawals in situations wherein people would probably want to save more and spend less, or probably maybe unproportionable reduction in expected business activity. So that's something to do with the business customers or the SME customers, or an exponential activity increase. So obviously, when the economy is going down, you would expect the volumes to go down. So any such thing is going to be probably raising alerts. So moving on to my next slide, these are the key messages that I'd like to sort of convey in this session of mine, is frequent updating of KYC profiles. That's absolutely critical, and this is going to be a program. I know obviously some of you are already undertaking such a program, and this may be a disruption to the programs that you might be undertaking, because obviously now you need to have a reliance on the new data, or you probably have to adapt yourself to the new data or to the new experiences. So this may cause a strain on the work that you would have already been doing for this important area. Second is the alerts volume. So this is more about scenario thresholds and alerts optimization, and also their risk scoring, so that you are able to sort of identify which ones to be managed based on a scientific technique. So therefore, even if there is a low volume, there has to be a high vigilance. So obviously, one could get carried away by the fact that obviously there are lesser number of alerts being produced, or probably in certain institutions, lesser number of STRs being reported. This essentially means that the vigilance is going to be very high, because we are already having an issue with respect to employee morale and productivity. So even if we are having the same number of employees, everyone is aware that the productivity is on a lower side, or could be on a lower side. Not because of the fact that you are working lesser time, it's because of the fact that obviously you have got many things to manage at home. Or even for that matter, obviously there is a sensitivity to the societal issues. Cash movement is another important area, and another important point is going to be movement of capital. So this risk has been identified not just by ourselves, but obviously this is a subject of discussion in many regulatory bodies, as to the fact that there could be an outflow from emerging or high-risk geographies, posing heightened money laundering or corruption risks. So we need to be aware of that also. And important point is the remote customer onboarding. I know obviously there are no as such remote onboarding mechanisms in different institutions in Pakistan as yet. But to the extent that we use technology for onboarding, we need to be cognizant of the fact that the technology has to provide us leverage and provide us required level of governance, controls, and processes for being able to do that. The charitable organizations, which obviously is an issue with social payments or social welfare payments or social welfare lending. So this is another important area, because obviously there are institutions which have logged on, which have sort of, which have been very supportive to State Bank of Pakistan and their schemes for financing or refinancing. So this is an area which would cause concern with, or could cause concern with respect to asset-based money laundering. So last but not the least, the area that I would like the institutions or my colleagues to sort of focus upon would be channel reprofiling and obviously digital re-risking. So this is essentially a part of the financial crime risk assessment that you would have done over the last 1 or 2 years based on state bank advice. There is a significant need to redo that. And the area that I would recommend or suggest for redoing is channel reprofiling and digital re-risking. Obviously, we talked about customer segment, but one of the other important areas is going to be industry risk reassessments or re-risking. That's going to be very, very important, because different industries will undergo different types of cycles and different types of risks and different types of dependencies in relation to pandemic. So geographic impact and re-risking, that too associated with COVID. If you've got rich data of the COVID-19 cases in different cities, you could use that for identifying which cities will propose what type of risk. So that one is going to be associated with the terrorism financing risk assessment or risk reassessments, and the risk of money laundering in welfare payments and financing. Another important point is going to be financial intelligence and collaborations. The need of it and the need of regulatory engagement is far greater than ever before. And I must emphasize on this point. And last but not the least is a wider financial crime topology integration. So it's about fraud, it's about cybersecurity, it's about anti-bribery and corruption. Together with that, anti-money laundering, KYC, and terrorism financing risk assessment aspects. So there is a lot of focus by the regulators on the financing, and there is a perception that this is lax, this is flexible. So the organizations need to appreciate the difference between being flexible and relaxing the rules. The rules haven't been relaxed, so you will be questioned later. So even if the organizations and even if the regulators are not carrying out or may not necessarily have been carrying out the financial crime inspections or other inspections to that greater level of efficiency and effectiveness that they were used to be carrying out before because of employee dependencies and all, it doesn't mean that that area is going to be left unexplored or unattended. It will be attended later. So it's just a matter of time. So we need to be aware of that. So FATF has issued a number of advices and number of pointers on the risk. So they said that the customers may be bypassing due diligence measures, and there could be an increased misuse of online financial risk services. So we are all aware of that. Obviously, there is a cyber crime and as the money laundering and other risks also involved. And then the use of the unregulated financial sector for people to be able to launder illicit funds. So that is to a certain extent applicable to the Pakistani banks, but very, very applicable to the institutions that may not necessarily be regulated by State Bank of Pakistan. So this is my view on the responses of the regulatory bodies. This is an illustration, the data that we have been able to, this is indicative, obviously, that certain banks' data, what has been the average of certain banks' data? You could see that there is a decrease. So in the case of sanctions, you see slight decrease. In the case of alerts, you see slight decrease. But transaction monitoring alerts are on a higher side. Now, obviously, situation may vary from institution to institution. This is not an organization-specific analysis. But we talk about STRs, so there is some increase. But we talk about branch and trade transactions. There is a reasonable decrease, about 25% or 12, 13, 25% or so. So this actually takes me back to my earlier point, the fact that low volume, even if low volume, but very high vigilance has to be exercised by the institutions. So with that, I would conclude my presentation. I hope it was clear, but obviously I would be available for any questions you may be having. So stay safe and be healthy. That's my message that I'd like to convey to each and every one of you. So thanks a lot for your patient listening. Over to you, Dalsons.
Thank you, Faraz Saab, for sharing your knowledge on this topic. Now, we'd like to invite Zuhaib Pasha, Joint Director, Banking Policy and Regulation. State Bank of Pakistan. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Delsons. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. I mean, is my voice okay, Delsons? Asif, hosts?
Yes, sir. It's
Is my
clear.
voice clear? Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Zohaib Pasha Khero. I am Joint Director in Banking Policy and Regulation Department at State Bank of Pakistan. I would like to thank Mr. Faraz for a very comprehensive introduction and very comprehensive opening on the issues that banks are facing in this pandemic, especially on AML and CFT front. I would also like to share my views and thoughts being a regulator. I would like to share my well. So my focus of presentation would be that how the things are evolving, what we know so far, and how the banks have responded or can respond, and what the banks should do in future. Because as very rightly pointed out that by Faraz that this thing can go into perpetuity as well. Uncertainty is very high. People, nobody knows that what is going to happen in a year or two. So in businesses, at the government level, and economies, in financial sector, everywhere, uncertainty is there. And I think this is the right time that the financial institutions and all the real sector businesses should think about their way forward. This slide, the first slide that I would like to touch upon briefly, is very important in my view. I think before understanding this slide, we should learn something about the context that we are living right now, because I know there were senior people joining today in this webinar. People from risk, people from compliance, trade, audit, all are listening. So I would like to take this opportunity to pass on the message that what banks are up to. If we look at the context, you can see that economy of the whole world is going down, and Pakistan is also not an exception to it. Our exports are down, businesses are shut. Most of the businesses are shut. We have been out of the lockdown period, but most of the sectors are still shut. The economic activity is low, and banks are a very important and crucial part of real economy or economic activity. So the banks are really very much exposed to whatever is happening in the economy. Working habits have changed. Most of the people at head offices in banks are working at home. Fewer people are working in branches. Fewer people are working on trade centers. Fewer people are working on the compliance function. The unemployment level in the country is high. The internal audits are, in most cases, suspended. Compliance reviews are suspended. Online activity have increased a lot. Number of vulnerable people have increased. Frauds have increased. People, we see that the significant rise in cyber crimes and online crimes happening. Even I have been receiving many messages from different sources that, okay, please provide us your phone number and details. We are approaching you from Benazir Bhutto Income Support Program, and then other various from State Bank, from very different sources. The government is busy in recovering the economy, and ensuring the regulators are busy in ensuring that the financial system remains stable and sound, so that it can face the challenges that are being faced by the real economy. The financial inflows from outside, be it charity or be it financial assistance from multilateral bodies, it has increased. The focus is more, and rightly so, is on saving livelihoods than lives. So in this context, and we can add on another context to it, is that Pakistan is already suffering very hard on AML safety front. We are currently in the grey list. Our challenges are much more which means that our challenges are much more than any other country in the world who is not in the gray list. We have to understand this thing. I think it's very important. All the banks, all the financial institutions, and all the stakeholders involved must understand that our risks on AML CFT have further aggravated than before. The situation before was even not good. So we can term this that maybe the situation has further aggravated. The person on the rope, I simply love this picture when I saw it. That the person on the rope is far away from his or her target. The challenge is very tough. The road is inclined, and then again, a pandemic, a shock like COVID-19 hits us. So what should we do? And whatever should we do has to be very different than what we have been doing before to ensure that we at least address the challenges that we are faced with right now. This word I like to call this novel normal because it's a novel coronavirus. So I think I try to be innovative a bit. It's a word of innovation. Novel normal. So one thing more that I would like that Faraz also mentioned and Faraz also stressed upon is that we have to accept and recognize that it's a new normal. When we say it's a novel normal, we mean that there was some old normal which is no more valid or relevant. The something that we are living in or living through right now is a normal. So one thing that takes us to is that it's not something. It's not an emergency situation, right? It's we have accepted it as to be a new normal. So we have to behave normally as well. We have to redefine everything that we used to do before in our old normal. We have to reassess, realign, re-equip, retrain everything that we used to do before. That's the only way forward in the medium term. If we will be waiting to move back to old normal and then always remain in between, not doing enough right now, not doing enough when we're doing in the old normal, I don't think it makes any good sense for us to be FATF compliant. As discussed in this context, I believe compliance risk profile of every bank I'm sorry compliance risk profile of every bank has increased significantly, or we can say that direction is very high because it's uncertain. Things are still evolving. The trends of AML CFT trends are still evolving in the pandemic. People are busy in right now the mode is of firefighting. When this mode is over, we'll be able to come up that what impact has it done. But the banks should understand this thing, that their risk profile has increased, is high. They should understand the new risks, and they should act accordingly and act swiftly. I believe the regulators, as said, are distracted. They are busy with other things reviving the economy and ensuring that the financial system is stable. But definitely, rest assured, the regulator is also watching out on AML CFT front. Nothing has been changed. All the conditions, all the frameworks, all the instructions, all the regulations which were issued by SBP in last 1 or 2 years on AML CFT and trade-based money laundering is still there. No concessions at all. Because we want our expectations with the banks are that these are the things that they should do at minimum to meet FATF requirements. And the good thing about our SBP's regulatory framework is that it's principle based. It encourages banks to adopt a risk-based approach, which is very easier said than done. I will discuss about risk-based approach for MLCFT in my next slide. But I think this is the way forward. Risk-based approach, adopting risk-based approach is the way forward. The responsibilities and obligations of banks have increased. may it be internal audit, may it be risk management, may it be trade officers, or may it be any other department in the bank or line managers, because they are facing the new risks. They are on the front line. So it's them to understand the risks, it's them to formulate policy responses, it's them to ensure that the integrity and stability of financial system is ensured, and to ensure that the criminal actors, the bad guys who are out there, they don't misuse or exploit financial system for their illicit purposes. I have already discussed this, that in the new work from home or any such model, the implementation of controls has become a big challenge for banks. And the next, and on the top of it is that the people or the business is going digital. So it makes even things more obscure, and it gives birth to some new risks that were never known or understood or identified before. So banks have to realign their controls with the way we work, because there's no doubt that they have to comply with all the instructions. They have to ensure that no sanctioned entity, person, individual, body, group, or country makes use of the financial system to carry out their transactions. It's very important. So may it be deposit account or any other account, may it be for charity purpose or any other purpose, the challenges remain there, but banks have to find new ways to cater to the uh, challenges of this novel normal. As said, the risk profile of every transaction has changed. The bank have to whatever was true in February 2020 may not be true in June 2020. Everything has changed. Supplier lines has changed. Supply chain has disrupted. Business model has changed. Some business has got out of business. Some sectors are shut. Some sectors are not working at their full capacity. Transport systems has distorted. So if you're involved in the trade business before, and if you're involved in trade business now, you will see that things are changing. So if the people who are trading, their transaction nature, transaction style, payment methods, everything may have changed. So you have to reassess things. You have to reassess their risk profile to remain relevant in this time. For criminals, I would say that they have got an opportunity of lifetime. They are always on the lookout to exploit the vulnerabilities of financial system, to exploit the loopholes. But at this time, they have got plenty of them. In a sense that foreign inflows are coming in, charity is coming in. There are export bans are implemented. People are not controls are not so well implemented. Things are disrupted. So they have got the opportunity of lifetime, and it's their job to raise, generate, and transfer money out and launder money. So they're very good at it. And if they've got this opportunity, I think it's the bankers, it's us, it's you, we all collectively together. We have to ensure, by taking all means possible and taking everything in hand that we can, to ensure that they don't succeed. They don't succeed in abusing our financial system. Yes, I think, as I said, the regulatory requirements remain the same. But as we know, the risk profiles have changed. The risk profiles of banks have changed. The risk profiles of customers have changed. And shouldn't the regulatory requirements also change? But they haven't, right? So I consider it as a favor. And there are also agencies out there, regulators and other sanction administrators, who have been giving, who are facilitating and giving concessions to banks during this pandemic. And we at being a regulator, we also take this thing into account. But the thing is that if this thing continues, if this episode continues, and if the quantum and the magnitude of new risks is very high, that can threaten the stability and the integrity of financial system, there's no, it cannot be ruled out that the new regulations or instructions might also come for banks to comply on AML, CFT, and especially trade money laundering. Yes, Ji, my being a regulator, my advice to banks is don't lose control of your control environment in the pandemic. I mean, even if we know that it's very challenging, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to balance it. It's a very tough decision, and it's a very a delicate trade-off whether you should allow business to work in these difficult times, or whether you should implement all the controls to ensure that you are complying with everything. So this is the beauty of risk-based approach to amend and to alter your controls to allocate resources, more resources to the areas which are more risky. But for that, to understand, to know that what is risky and what is not risky, you have to adopt a risk-based approach and keep it dynamic, keep reassessing, because reassessments, because any risk-based approach may it be risk-based audit, compliance, money laundering, or any other approach. Risk-based approach is always forward-looking, is dynamic in nature, and is founded on a very comprehensive set of reassessments. Because unless banks don't know, unless banks they won't understand that what are the risks and what is the quantum or magnitude of those risks, it would be very difficult to come up with a policy response or risk mitigants to address those risks. So the banks have to be agile and adaptive. This time is of agility and adoption. We can't just wait and see that okay, when things normalizes and we'll go back to the old normal, and then we'll continue as we used to do. No, I don't think this approach should be adopted. We have to adopt a risk-based approach. We have to change our risk-based matrices. We have to change our risk profiles. We have to reassess our vulnerabilities. We have to reassess our controls. We have to reassess our processes. We have to reassess our policies. I think that is the way forward for banks to be able and to face the challenges that we are facing right now. The banks have to be resilient. The banks have to be responsible. When I mean responsible, that they should not wait for someone from outside, some regulator to come or some other agency to come and then tell them, okay, do this thing. It's not the right way to do. You are the front line. You are in the business. You are doing this for many years. You know better than us. You know more than us. So you have to take responsibility. You have to accept responsibility. You have to be responsible and act now. Don't wait for anyone to guide you, to hold your hand and to tell you what to do and what not to do. For that, I think for our new approach of working that we have, it's essential that banks should invest in technology. They must adopt a move towards using RegTech, using technology for regulatory compliance. Because it becomes very difficult with the few people at office, not able to screen or review every transaction. Some people working from home, to do this work. So if your technological solution, it would definitely help banks to navigate through these difficult times, and it will definitely help them. It will definitely help accelerate their adoption of technology that I think today or tomorrow they have to do. So it's better done today than tomorrow. And last thing, but not the least, that the banks should not let COVID-19 to be a pretext for loose control for a long time. I think they should understand the new risks and vulnerabilities. And it's been 3-4 months since we are in this process, and it would be better. They must try their level best to realign and reassess the things as much as they can. Some questions that the banks should think on and answer is that what was their compliance strategy before? Is it relevant in this change scenario, novel? I don't think so, because banks' business strategies have changed. banks, the real economy, the risk to real economy are maybe huge, and these will be reflected on banks' balance sheet today or tomorrow. So banks are changing their business strategies. When their business strategy changes, your compliance strategy has to change as well. It has to be aligned with the business strategy. So you have to think about what your business compliance strategy or internal audit strategy or trade strategy was and what it is now. Is it aligned with the new normal, novel normal or not? What is the decision making processes? Has they changed or not? So I mean, it starts from the top management, from the board, direct down to the I think the officer who is involved in the process of the case. It's as said by the Faraz at the start. It's the change of mindset for maybe for 1 or 2 years, but it's the change of the mindset, and it has to be done. The BCP, I hope that sanctions compliance and compliance risk is would definitely be the part of the BCP as we know it in the old normal. But I don't think it would be relevant in the novel normal, because the BCP, the idea of BCP is that it's for something may go wrong in a very limited portion or of your operations for a very not for a very short time, right? But this is not short time. This thing has to may continue for 1 or 2 more years. So maybe the BCP has to be changed. Maybe the BCPs are to be rewritten for the banks, or maybe if we consider it as a novel normal and accept it, maybe then it's there's no need of considering it to be a BCP active operations, right? And again, then what changes have been made in controls during the COVID-19? Have we done this, or are we still waiting for reverting to the norm to the old normal? Have the policies been changed? Has the bank and senior management understood the risk that the changes or the change environment is you know exposing to the banks? So I think it's very important that this is my last slide. So yeah, so I think it's very important for banks to reassess the situation, understand the risks, be open, be resilient, be agile, and adopt and act. They have to act responsibly, decisively, and swiftly. Thank you very much. This is I think done from my side. I hope you a very good weekend. Thank you very much. Thank you, Delsons. Back to you.
Thank you, Zuhaib Saab. Now I would like to invite Sahab Nagar, APAC Director, Business Solutions Group Equity. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Delsons. I hope everybody can hear my voice. If you cannot, then please ping on the chat. I will try to share my screen now. Zuhaib Saab, I think you need to unshare before I can share. Thank you. So please let me know through the chat if you are able to see the screen. Okay, perfect. So good afternoon, everybody. I am Saurav Nagar, and I'm the Director of Business Solutions for Equity for APAC, and I'm based in Singapore. I'm really thrilled to be part of this informative sessions, and I would like to first of all start by thanking Zuhaib Saab and Faraz Saab for an insightful presentation. It really added to my knowledge, as well today. And I think what I would like to present in the next 20 to 25 minutes is going to be a nice segue, and would also complement some of the topics that you both have shared with us today. So what I would like to do is present to you an interesting analysis that we at Equity have done with respect to some of the major sanctions list, and especially focusing on OFAC. As we know, OFAC has the biggest influence on the regulatory compliance and especially sanctions because of the fact that global trade still very much depends on the use of US dollars. And the reason for doing that is to share some of the trends, and there'll be some numbers that I will throw at you, and also share some of the challenges that institutions like you face because of these trends. And then we're going to look at how have these trends changed, if at all, during the COVID-19 period that we are all in currently. Has it slowed down the change, or has it picked up? We're going to look at that. And then I'm going to steer the conversation towards how are these sanctions placed from an APAC perspective, and then touch upon a bit on Pakistan as well. And then at the end, share some of the best practices, what needs to be done, what can be done before I end the presentation, and take questions at the very end. To begin, I would like to give a short introduction of Equity, the company that I'm representing. So in brief, Equity has a long history. As you can see from the very left, the company was established in 1836, so almost 200 years now. And one of the pioneer brands called Bankers Almanac was established in 1845. Which is still very relevant in the financial institutions and is used by over 97% of the financial institutions globally to do their due diligence when it comes to correspondent banking relationships. As a matter of fact, next week we are celebrating 175th anniversary of Bankers Almanac, so really excited about that. The brand has stood the challenges of time, started from a book, and now it's offered from, via digital channels. Now, moving a bit forward, in 2011, Equity was acquired by Reed Elsevier Group, which is headquartered in London. It's a very big group, $46 billion revenue. So 2011, we became part of that group, and subsequently, we have acquired companies to increase our portfolio as well as offer a value to our customer. So we acquired in 2014 Forcosoft, which is used by 8 out of the top 10 banks in the world for transaction screening. It's top of the line solution for transaction screening. And then we closed an epic deal with PayPal. So all PayPal transaction will be screened via Forcosoft. Then in 2018, SBS, so Safe Banking System, became part of our family, which brings in the capabilities related to artificial intelligence techniques and how that can be utilized to do KYC checks and reduce noise. And last but not the least, this year we have not stopped, even though COVID-19 has stopped a lot of different things around the world, but we have kept on improving our solutions and increasing the breadth and depth of our solutions. And we acquired this company called Apply Financial, which brings in the capability to offer payment optimizations to our customers. Now, last but not the least, very proud to say today that when it comes to banking and financial institution market in Pakistan, we are helping around 30 to 40% of this market in Pakistan. So, it's been a long journey. We have learned along the way, and we are looking forward to be part of the journey as we move, forward. So quickly, 3 main solutions that we offer: financial crime screening, which relates to software as well as data, so sanctions, PEP, negative media, vessel data. When it comes to screening your transactions, customers, as well as trade. We also offer payment services, which helps optimizing the customer experience as well as the straight-through processing at the back end. And the last solution is very US centric, where it enables the US federal as well as state governments to determine if an applicant is eligible to receive benefits from various assistance programs. It's used by all the states in the US. All right, so now moving on, let's focus on the topic. And I thought that, it'll be good for me to, start the session by putting some context around how can we classify different sanctions these days. So I'm pretty sure that everybody who's attending this call is very well aware of what sanctions are and what are their purpose. But there are three broad categories when it comes to sanctions, and they differ in their reach. So I'm getting some chat which says that there's a distortion in my voice. Is it still there, or if Delsons, can you speak and let me know if this is okay, or should I do something? Okay, so okay, I'm assuming it's okay. Please let me know if it becomes unbearable, and I'll surely try to do something. So there are three essential categories that we can put sanctions in. So you start with unilateral sanctions, the middle one, and you can think of any country putting sanctions on either a blanket sanction on another country or certain sectors of that country. So OFAC, your OFAC sanctions, or UK's HMT sanctions are unilateral sanctions, and these are sanctions which can be really challenging for multinational corporations, which need to navigate various jurisdictions, and hence it offers a lot of complexities, and therefore they may not be very effective, right? Now, sanctions can be really effective if they're implemented by a large group of states, and such sanctions are known as multilateral sanctions. So United Nations sanctions is one of the best examples of multilateral sanctions, where all the member group of United Nations sign the resolution to enforce our international policy objective, for example. Then within this 20th century, we have seen typically US utilizing their influence over the trade to not only impose their jurisdictions to the US citizens and US companies, but also beyond that, and that's called the extraterritorial sanctions. So these are the three broad categories of sanctions, and they have various reach. Now let's try to understand different sanction trends. And when I say trends, we are looking at the size and trajectories of these major lists. So I'm using four major lists globally. So you have the United Nations list, represented by in this graph as with the United Nations symbol. Then you have the US specific list, which is OFAC, and then you have EU list, and at the end you have the HMT, which is the UK specific watch list. And we are looking at number of designated entities within each list and how they have changed over the last 5 years. So we are looking at a period from end of 2014 to end of 2019. Now, it is worth noting that OFAC list was the largest to start with. However, over the years, we have seen the gap between the other three watch lists widen, and it has been very relevant under the Trump administrations. So US sanctions have risen by 40% under the Trump administration. And on the right hand side, you'll see two similar graphs which are representing the same data but in a different way. So if we look at the top one here, we see that there's been a yearly change of 41% in the OFAC list since 2014. And then at the bottom, there's if you look at 2019, there's been an 8% month-to-month change in OFAC. So clearly, there are a lot of changes happening in the sanctions watch list, especially OFAC. Now, if we just look at 2019 January to December, I thought this is an interesting data to share. So there's no single month where there's been no update to the sanctions list. Almost all the sanctions lists have had some changes every month. Now this graph may not reflect how many changes per month, uh, but there are changes every single month. There are some months where you have more changes versus other, but uh, what it reflects is there's an ongoing change, right? And there's a need for speed for all the regulated entities to have good, solid operating processes in order to navigate these complex waters, right? Scoping up with these constant changes requires robust operating processes, is the message here. So things are changing on a monthly basis, right? This speed of change is high. Now, I know that both Faraz Saab and Zoeb Saab touched on the impact of COVID, and I wanted to now look at how COVID has changed our life generally, and then look at what is the impact of COVID on the regulatory side of things. So we all know that we are all working from home. I am presenting this from home, and that's probably the reason why I'm having headphone issues. We have waving, type of internet at home. There are a lot of challenges. People who have families have to juggle between home, work and household activities. Staying home is the mantra in order to beat the virus. And then airports. There's an image of Singapore airport. It's an airport that was bustling in the past is now empty, which has affected the economies and especially the aviation sector. Economies that are opening uh, are mandating safe distancing, as is shown in the photo at the bottom left. So these are some of the changes how COVID has impacted our lives. So I was very interested to see what does COVID mean for the regulatory updates, right? So we saw 2019 there were regular updates. How has it affected how is it in 2020? Has it slowed down? Has COVID-19 slowed down the pace of the regulatory activity? Now, if you look at the first 3 months of first 13-week data of 2020, quarter one data, essentially 2020, we actually we don't see any tangible impact of the pandemic on the activity, right? And this is very reassuring. As Zuhair Saab mentioned, that any pandemic offers new opportunities for the criminal minds to there's an opportunity for them. So as he pointed out, this is an opportunity of lifetime for them. So we should not be putting our guards down, and that is very reassuring to see from all the different regulators that the regulatory activity is still going on. But it has its own challenges because everybody is working from home, and the access to technology may or may not be available in all the different countries and jurisdictions. But this is a point worth noting that COVID-19 has not slowed down the pace of regulatory activities. Now, I also wanted to break down the OFAC list in terms of various entities who have addresses in APAC. Now, these entities may or may not be APAC citizens or APAC entities, but I wanted to look at entities who have at least an address somewhere in APAC. So what I did first was on the left-hand side, I tried to categorize different entities based on, what is the reason why they have been added to the list. So broadly, there are two categories. Either an entity is in the list because it's because of the global issues such as weapons of mass destruction, glorification, terrorism, drug trafficking, or they are related to any adversary country such as North Korea or Iran. So if we look at the left-hand side here, we see that most entities who are part of the OFAC list are due to narcotics, right? So narcotics takes the top place when it comes to the global issue. That is the reason why these entities being added, followed by terrorism. and then followed by Iran. And it's interesting that I see Imran Shabir pointing out that the Sudan is missing. Yes, I'm surprised as well. But it's Imran, Sudan is not missing. It's just that I've selected the top categories, and the top, and according to the top categories, narcotics, terrorism, and Iran are the top three. Now, if we consider then how many entities in OFAC have addresses in APAC, right? So we see that China takes the top place. So 180 entities which are sanctioned under OFAC have addresses in China, followed by other major countries in APAC. But it's interesting to see that 180, so that's a startling number, and if you see the second place of Thailand, this is a huge difference, 48 versus 180. So a lot of entities on OFAC's sanctions list have an address in China. So these are some of the findings in terms of, if you break the OFAC list down and look at from an APAC perspective. Now APAC, why am I looking from an APAC perspective? Not just because we are all based in APAC, but APAC is a very strategic region, right? APAC has a very strategic position when it comes to global trade. Several APAC countries are important, trading hubs, right? And financial hubs. So you have Shanghai, Singapore, Hong Kong, very important trading hubs, in terms of the volume of trade that takes place through these ports, as well as they are financial hubs as well, all three of them. And at the same time, these countries are near some of the high-risk countries or sanctions risk countries. So North Korea, Burma are our neighbors, as well as some of the ports in China are really high risk because they are neighboring North Korea. So the exposure to financial crime and sanctions evasion increases for the APAC countries and APAC entities, essentially, and therefore it's important to promote sanction compliance in APAC. And by promotion, I mean number one step to promote is via increasing awareness. Now, financial institutions, because of the fact that they've been regulated since the longest time, by and large, have the most knowledge when it comes to regulations, and financial crime. But there are other sectors that may not be very aware. And what we see across APAC is there's an uneven awareness of financial crimes, and therefore that needs to be increased. At the same time, it's also reassuring to see the regulatory bodies as well as the watchdogs coming out with these advisories from time to time to educate the regulating entities. So we see, the watchdogs and OFAC advisories coming out with the illicit shipping practices, the new typologies that they have discovered, as well as last month FATF came out with an advisory, giving out guidance to the regulated entities on how COVID-19 has increased, and put new threats on the regulated entities and what to do about it. So I think that's reassuring. At the same time, it's important to increase the awareness because of the strategic position that APAC holds. Now, I think this is the last slide when it comes to stats, and I think it's important. Some of us would have some idea on it, as we have seen the recent news of enforcement actions that are taking place on for example, companies like Huawei. But the idea here is that it's no longer just the financial institutions that are facing the enforcement actions. Yes, financial institutions still take the top place. However, we are starting to see from the last couple of years now that non-financial institutions are also facing enforcement actions for failing to comply with the sanctions regime, sanctions jurisdictions. So if you see this chart that I'm presenting, telecom actually is taking the second place, followed by aircraft, chemical industry, etc., etc. So the message here is that all industries are on OFAC's radar, and they are not going to shy away from taking enforcement actions if any entity fails to comply. Some stats on the fines that we have seen. 2019, last year, was a record year for OFAC enforcements. We saw $1.3 billion in fines and settlement. Now there's no linear graph or forecast that you can make, based on the stats here to say that it's going to increase this year or decrease next year. However, it's just an observation that we need to be aware of, because enforcement actions are a powerful tool to foster sanctions compliance, and it's being increasingly used by OFAC to highlight misconducts and clarify the expectations that they have from the regulated entities. If you see on the chart here, it's not just the banks that have been fined for failing, for their failings, but also companies like ZTE and pharmaceutical companies. So it's a very powerful message that OFAC is sending to the world, that it's important for all the different sectors to comply with their sanctions regime. Now, if we look at the Pakistan perspective here, again, this is research done by Acuity based on the data that we have. So as I was telling you, we through our Bankers Almanac product, we have the data of different correspondent banking information for all the countries globally. So we did this research, I think last year, and we looked at the data of the number of correspondent banking relationships that Pakistan-based banks are having with the outside world, and how many different correspondent banks are being used by the Pakistan-based banks. And if you look at that, the graph here, the trend is on a decline. So we see that both the number of correspondent banking relationships are declining, or at least it was declining by the end of 2016, and the number of banks that were used as correspondents was also declining. So if you have less banks being used as correspondents, it just decreases competition, and if the number of correspondent banking relationship itself declines, it's actually not good for a country, because it is actually an indicator of de-risking. Now, as Pakistan is striving to move out of the gray list, the FATF gray list, and I know that there's a lot of good work that's going in the community. We expect and we hope that this graph will go up, as this is an indication of how good a country is doing in our opinion. We are doing another set of research to see how this has changed. But I don't see it changing dramatically from what we are seeing right now. But the hope is that as we strive to improve compliance, it should improve. But that's the current Pakistan perspective when we look at the correspondent data. Some of the main typologies which are relevant in the current scenario, and OFAC and other regulatory bodies have been pointing out, is I've selected the top 3 out of that because I'm also concerned about the time. The number 1 is the stripping of regular wire transfer. So stripping is an act where either a bank or somebody in the bank tries to remove certain information from a transactions in order to be not caught. So a simple example would be if a transaction had Iran written in it, and that it will be flagged up in the system, you remove Iran from the transaction so that you can avoid an alert. So that's called stripping, and this is something that has been highlighted by OFAC, and a lot of different fines that OFAC has placed on the banks is because these banks failed to detect stripping practices. Illicit shipping practices is something that is very new and is a focus of the regulators. We can see that there's been growing number of designated vessels in the OFAC list. It's increasing exponentially now. We see a lot of different advisories coming out by OFAC and other regulators, and naming different vessels that were either involved, for example, having ship-to-ship transfers or turning off their GPS and trying to fool the location that they are in. There are also regulatory guidance which are suggesting that ongoing monitoring of all the entities involved in the trade be done throughout the trade life cycle. So there's an increased focus here because there are these are shipping practices being used by rogue nations such as North Korea, right? Cryptocurrencies is an interesting one as a new addition to the typologies. OFAC has now started to include crypto addresses to sanctions list. And the expectation is that the crypto assets and transactions should be frozen for the designated parties. However, yes, there is an acknowledgement that technical limitations to implement sanctions on crypto transactions still remains. But it's good to see that it's been added to their radar, and we see more such advisories and the technical limitations to subside as we enter 2021 and the years to come. Right, so we have spoken about a lot of sanctions, but I wanted to use the last two slides to talk about things not just related to sanctions, although my topic is sanctions, but I just wanted to not limit myself to sanctions, because I know that when we do KYC, it's not just limited to sanctions, right? There are essentially three questions that we are asking. Who is my client? Can I do business with the client? And should I do business with the client, right? Can I do business and should I do business is based on your risk-based approach and the larger risk appetite of the business. However, the very first step is important. Who is my client? And for that, it's not just the sanctions that we're looking at. It's very critical. It's a 0 and 1 game, right? If somebody's on sanctions, you just can't do business with them. However, we are also, as you are very well aware, we are also looking at politically exposed persons, adverse media, and all the other relevant lists, and internal blacklist, for example. So, and then we are also looking at, when we look at sanctions, we're going beyond just what is provided by sanctions, right? So we are aware of the OFAC 50 rule, where every entity that is sanctioned, you have entities which are owned or controlled 50% or more by the sanctioned entity automatically sanctioned. But the names of these entities are not essentially given in the list itself. But the expectation is that the regulated entities should do their due diligence and find it out. You also have a governmental entity. So government of Venezuela is sanctioned, but you don't really get to know who are part of the government. So that's again an expectations from the regulated entity. And then we have trade sanctions, which in itself is very complex. You need to make sure that you are monitoring the trade. You want to monitoring the vessel, when it enters the high-risk port, the restrictions on certain goods, etc. So these are challenges, and we need to really go beyond the sanctions list here. So what is a perfect model then? How can we, as bankers and other institutions that need to comply, navigate these challenges? So this is a model that we think would work. So first of all, it's acquiring good data, and having it at a central place. So all the sanctions lists and beyond. So OFAC 50 rule, everything above that, acquire that, PEPs, EDD, anti-social forces, all the different data points that you have a process to acquire it and update it on a timely manner to comply with the SLAs that different regulators might have, and then feed it to a scrubbing engine. So as Zuhaib Saab was mentioning about using technology and RegTex, it also comes, plays a part in the screening or KYC side of things. So you have the scrubbing engine, which should have an algorithm and rule which consumes these files as well as your transaction and customer information. Then you have your checks, and in certain cases you need ongoing monitoring. So it's certainly you need it for your customers as well as for trade. And then a robust review, management, workflow, and audit trail. So we're focusing on policy process and the frequency at which we need to, adhere to these policies. So that's a model for not only achieving automation, but also ensuring that we have robust process, aligned with the expectation of different regulators. And with that, I would like to say thank you. I know that we are going to take questions at the very end, so please save your questions after we are done with all the presentations. Over to you, Delsons.
Thank you, Sarab Saab. Now I would like to invite Salim Tobani, Head Trade Compliance, Mizan Bank. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Uh, आवाज आ रही है आसिफ? Hold on.
जी sir.
आ रही है? Okay.
जी आ रही है.
First of all, I would like to thank Delsons Equity and PwC for inviting me and share my views on TBML risk, expectation, and challenges. My name is Salim Dobani. I am currently heading the Trade Compliance and Internal Control Unit in Mizan Bank. I will talk about it in respect to the specific to Pakistan industry, and I will talk about the risk associated in Pakistan regarding the TBML and what are the expectations of the regulator and what are the challenges faced by the banks in order to incorporate this TBML risk framework. So first of all, I would like to just briefly brief upon the TBML. What is TBML? I think it's a very, you can say, the evolving terminology. Initially, we were only talking about the money laundering and all this aspect, but after lots of controls implemented by the money laundering, there is a, the peoples are now using trade as a source of money laundering. So for that, they are using the trade instrument, trade documents for this. Although trade is a very specific topic and is also a very, in terms of structured transactions, so it's very difficult to find out the TBML or the trade-based money laundering in trade. However, there are some red flags we will discuss in a couple of slides. First of all, just for the sake of the definition, what is TBML? That FATF is in 2006 is explained TBML as the process of disguising the proceed of crime and moving value to the use of trade association in an attempt to legitimize their illicit origin. So the FATF is, wanted to point out that illegitimate or the illegal proceeds are, legally proceed through trade documents. That's called in terms of simple term is TBML. So FATF also broadened this definition in 2008. Includes terrorist financing as follows. So the TBML and terrorist financing both are included in the definition. Refer to the proceed of disguising is also same as the definition, but include the terrorist financing is also in this. So now the topic, the main challenges, red flags, which currently available in TBML. First of all, I think the most important and the most technical part of this TBML red flag is pricing. Pricing include transferring of value, over invoicing, under invoicing. In order to judge this, I think it's very difficult. I have also seen gone through with the ICC document on pricing way back in June, July 2019. It also suggests that the pricing or to determine the price of any product is very difficult. There are many components which determine the pricing. Like there are tenor, relations, cost, season, many more. So the pricing to determine is very difficult. What I understand and what I experienced through my experience of TBML for the last, maybe you can say the 7 or 8 years specifically to TBML, I realized that there is an, you can say the organization or the typical institution which is available is custom. Custom is assessing the values of the goods. They are assessing each and every product which are going through Pakistan or going in Pakistan. So in order to develop a pricing model, we can definitely take the help of custom in order to develop a pricing model. However, if we go on through the State Bank circular and framework, it suggests that individuals or a bank need to go through some of the components like Google search, newspaper, market search, इसका जो कहते हैं custom valuations, specific turnover data. So based on that, you can determine or make the pricing module. Okay, now by saying that it's very simple कि we can make easily a pricing module. एक ऐसा pricing module बना दिया जाए जिसके अंदर हम system के अंदर एक price डालें, एक अपना product डालें, so we can gone through with the pop up with the pricing that this price is okay. You will go through with the transaction, but practically it is very difficult to implement such things. So for me, the most important red flag or the challenge for the bank is to determine the price of any product. Now, how to make a good pricing module for any bank? For me, if I can add on my my theory on this. Pricing module cannot be determined unless and until you have a source of data. Source of data means a data which is available by any MIS, any internet source or any other source. So for that, मेरे लिए custom का data सबसे ज़्यादा important है. The custom can provide you the data based on the HS code. It can easily help the bank to determine the pricing of any product. That is one of the element. Another element or the trade red flag is high risk countries. Now, what are the high risk countries? If I can explain high risk countries, so FATF has defined the high risk countries as those countries who don't have the who has the weak measurement in order to encounter money laundering and terrorist financing risk. So for that, they assess the countries, they issue the country list based on the every quarter basis. So based on that, there are around, I think, 16 to 18 countries currently in Pakistan, in the world, including Pakistan as well. So since Pakistan is also in the grey list, we are facing the heat as well. So to encounter that this risk, we have to do the enhanced due diligence in terms of having this high risk transaction countries. So I can't go into the details because of shortage of time. So how can we go into the EDD and all this? Number 3 is the dual use goods. Dual use goods are those goods which can be used for commercial purpose as well as for the industrial purpose or maybe the terrorist purpose or maybe any other purpose जिसमें कोई नुकसान हो सकता हो या hazardous goods हो. Now it's very difficult how to determine. Example लेते हैं, ball bearing. It can be used to manufacture the fan. It can be used to make a bomb. So these type of goods can be used for dual purpose. So in order to encounter such red flag, we have to go into the customer and check the end use of that good. Take an example of ball bearing. If the customer is saying that this ball bearing is used for fans, making fans, it makes sense. So it's okay. Okay. So we have to make a judgmental call on that. Number 4 is the tax haven countries. Tax haven countries are those countries where you have low tax valuation or very minimal or maybe zero taxation. So the person or the entities which are which wants to avoid or evade the taxation, they open their companies in the tax haven countries. These are very high risk countries. So we need to check all these things. Next, third party payments. This is also very important red flags. Currently, we are having a lot of transactions. I don't say that these are not genuine trade transactions because third party में हर transaction non-genuine नहीं होती. Some of the transactions are, most of the transactions are, I think I must say, are genuine. Genuine means there are lots of buying houses, indenters sitting in Dubai, sitting in other part of the world, who are taking the orders from different countries and send it to Pakistan, let's say, and making payment from themselves and shipment to any other country. So these are genuine trades. ये कोई गलत transaction नहीं हो रही. But then there has to be a relation between the third party. हमें relationship जरूर check करना है कि अगर उस पार्टी का उस transaction के साथ क्या link है. Policy description of goods, it's very simple by a red flag, TBML red flag, that any description of goods which, deceive the banker. Let's say import of the original mobile phones and showing the refurbished mobile phones. These are policy description of goods. We need to know very much careful about such this type of red flags. Last but not the least is system development. Now this is very, very, technical as well as very important. How to make system development, किस तरह से TDML का कोई ऐसा सिस्टम बनाया जाए जो तमाम रेड फ्लैग को कैटर भी करे, तमाम चीजों को कवर भी करे. So we have some solutions in currently in the industry. We will discuss later in this couple of slides. Now the next topic which I want to discuss, and that is very important, that is the challenges faced by the bank in Pakistan to encounter or to incorporate such TBML red flags, and also lots of others, risk profiling, AD risk profiling, which is being allowed or which is being enforced by the State Bank of Pakistan to do so. Number one is the lack of awareness. Since this is a very evolving and a new field, there are not a lot of people aware of this TBML, as well as there are not a lot of experts in the industry. So people are learning from their experiences and implement such experience in their organizations. Understanding of compliance. I always say that initially when I used to start my career in the banking, it used to be a very small compliance department. There are only 3 to 4 people sitting in the compliance, and we used to only deliver the documents to compliance, and they onward forwarded to State Bank of Pakistan and just work like a post office. But nowadays, compliance is totally changing, and especially after the Pakistan entered into the grey list of FATF, it becomes very important. And for that, what I can say that compliance is now everybody's responsibility. Initially, it was only compliance department, but now I must say that compliance is everyone's responsibility, and everyone's need to, comply each and every processes, systems implemented by the bank. Next is price estimation, which we have discussed in details, and it's very difficult, बड़ा मुश्किल होता है pricing को valuation करना. और I think सबसे ज़्यादा problem भी आपको pricing में ही आती है. जितने भी हमारे participants हैं, I know कि वो pricing में इनको issues आते हैं, price determination में issues आते हैं, customers के साथ problem होती हैं, delays आते हैं. These are all challenges. Number 4 is the under pressure from customers. It's very normal. Like if a bank is refusing a transaction based on some red flag of TBML, the customer goes into the other bank and the transaction gets processed very easily. So the customer, blame that bank A that you are stopping my transaction, you are pressurizing me, and देखें दूसरी bank ने easily कर लिया. So point is, now the State Bank has already issued the framework. So it's every bank's responsibility to incorporate and follow the circular and State Bank guidelines and framework. So now such challenge would not occur. That is ideal. ये नहीं होना चाहिए. Somehow it's still a challenge. Now the next is reluctant to share others' document. Very, very, important. Currently, if you look at the framework, there is a requirement that if you, introduce a new customer of trade, NTV customer, so you need to send a letter to the bank to whom we previously worked with for the overdues and all. Now, when we send the letter to the previous bank, they pressurize the customer. They, call the customer, okay, why are you moving? And that's like that. And they are reluctant to share the documents. Such issues are, prevailing. And I think what I'm currently speaking about these challenges, these are all practical challenges. And I must say that my audience will also admit the same. Now, the next is authenticity of available data. That's very important. Take example of pricing. Now, how can we say that Alibaba is the authentic source to check the price? It's very difficult, no? We cannot say that. We cannot say that the check from this source, यहाँ से check कर लेंगे pricing तो वो बिल्कुल सही होगी, यहाँ से check करेंगे तो सही नहीं होगी. Not like that. So this is also a big challenge. Available of resources, I must say it's currently, I think the TBML experts demand are, in Pakistan is very much high, highly increasing, and लोग नहीं है, समझते नहीं है बहुत सारे लोग इस काम को, तो है मसले, so that's also a challenge. Now, experienced persons are not the same as the case as the availability. Now, what are the regulator expectation? State Bank हमसे क्या चाहता है as a bank? They gave lot of framework के अंदर बहुत सारी चीजें उन्होंने mention की, but I must include the main points. Number one is the risk profiling of new and existing customer of trade. Very important. Since we all know that in Pakistan we have a deposit customers, they have the ratings, or you can say the risk profiling based on their high, medium, low rating. Now the State Bank expect banks to do the risk profiling of their trade customer as well, based on some parameters like the turnover, the ports of shipment, the counterparties, the related party, the number of STR has been raised, blah blah blah. So the based on that, we need to equip with the risk profiling of trade customer. Now this is a very important as well as a typical task. It's not that easy, because if you are making a component of a trade like turnover and anything, you need to give the rating, the amount of numbers, or the, you can say अगर 100 नंबर है तो मुझे 5 नंबर उसमें देने हैं, 10 नंबर उसमें देने हैं, फिर एक रेटिंग निकालनी है, फिर मैंने बताना है कि हाई मीडियम लो के ऊपर मैंने किस कस्टमर को कितनी रेटिंग पे रखना है. Not that easy. So that is a regular expectation as well. The another part is AD own profile. Once we gone through with the risk profiling of new and existing customer, we need to make the AD profile, यानी account authorized dealer का अपना एक प्रोफाइल बनना है. उसके अंदर भी कुछ कंपोनेंट्स दिए हुए हैं कि weighted average of risk profiling of customers बनाने हैं. Then we have a lot of other aspect as well, like the jurisdiction in which the bank is working. So there are lots of things which need to asked by the bank from the regulator. Now, next is price related due diligence. It's already been discussed in details कि pricing के अंदर इतने issues किस तरह से करने हैं और regulator की expectations हैं in order to determine the price of each and every product of trade transactions. High risk transaction and enhanced due diligence. It's very important that there are high risk countries which are already mentioned in the FATF in their website. So for that, and there are high risk transaction as well, like in trade, we in the framework State Bank already mentioned there are the high risk transactions like export advance payment, import advance payment, open account payment, sole proprietorships, and so on and so forth. So we need to have a mechanism. We need to build an mechanism where these all high risk transactions need to be due diligence or enhanced due diligence by someone in a compliance, or maybe in operations, or maybe in risk, someone other than trade who can look after these transactions. Now that's a very difficult or important task, to develop a technology based solution, avoid manual intervention. Now it's very important in order to build a solution, or market में कुछ ऐसे solutions available हो which can cater the need of TBML risk. And then there are awareness session of like trainings and development of TBML and all. So the session which we are currently doing for you, so all the participant is also a part of this awareness session. Now I have also included one of the ICC paper ICC is International Chamber of Commerce. Regarding the pricing, it's issued in July 2019, and it says that it's very difficult in their paper to determine the price based on these components, that the date that the contract was signed, that is one of the component. Incoterms, like whether it is CFR, it's FOB. Okay, FOB में freight नहीं होता तो prices कम होनी है. CNF में freight included है तो prices ज़्यादा होंगी. The quality of the product, there are number of quality of a same product available in the market. So we don't know the quality. The dealer or maybe the importer or exporter are doing this. Freight cost, seasonality, client purchasing or selling, price may justificably different. So these are the components which determine the pricing. And ICC also quote that it's very difficult to determine the correct price of any product. So based on that, this is my last slide. I have included the solutions I think provided by equity on trade risk. There are a number of solutions. I may say there are 2 or 3. Number one is the compliance link, which is a sanction-based solution, which is providing the sanction screening of trade transactions. Number two, very important, is the vessel tracking system, which has been providing the vessel movement from one product to one port to another port, and it's also provide us the data for any sanction or high risk country port hit by the this vessel. And I must say that by implementing such vessel tracking products, compliance link, or maybe the sanction products, or the TBML framework risk, which include pricing and all, so banks can handle and encounter sorry TBML risk in their organizations. And also the most important, they are also providing the trade or audit trail for all the transactions. So for that, thank you very much all of you for attending the session. And once again, thanks Delson and PwC Equity for providing me the opportunity. Thanks all, and over to Delson.
Thank you, Salim Chabani sahab.
Hello.
Is there any questions you want to ask?
Moderator maybe handle such a wait a minute. Asif, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Sir, please. We are more welcome to this question answer session.
Okay, sir. Wait.
Can we take question answers?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Anyone wants to ask question? Can you raise a hand? We can take you on the mic, please. First, start with the Frasab. Can you hear us?
जी बिल्कुल, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. We are taking question for you.
Sure.
I think someone.
जी, question है कोई क्या?
No, I think you have already answered on the private chat, right?
Yeah, I have already tried to answer a few of those ones.
All right, fine. Okay, hold on, please. Let me collect the questions. We have a question for Zoeb Saab from. Uh, we have given the you can say questions to Zoeb Saab. If you can answer Zoeb Saab, please, one by one.
इसमें आसिफ, I think I have answered couple of questions. उसके अलावा they are very, I mean, general से questions, they're not very specific नहीं है. I mean, need more information कि वो क्या चाहते हैं ना. कोई अगर आप पिन पॉइंट कर लें.
एक क्वेश्चन है मेरे ख्याल में कि what can be the role of internal control? This is, I am repeatedly seeing this question.
आवाज बहुत कम आ रही है फराज.
Like, there is a question from someone named Faisal Sultan. He probably wants to ask about the role of internal control.
All right, fine. Okay. Thank you very much, all panelists. Faraz Saab, Zoeb Saab, Surab Saab, and Salim Saab. Hello.
Thank you, Asif. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Asif. Thank you. Any questions? No?
Hold
Thank
on,
you,
please.
Chief.
What? Okay.
इतना समझ आ गया TVML सबको, माशाल्लाह से.
All right.
चलें,
I mean,
good.
I can take the internal control questions, I mean, and then I think my fellow panelists can add on because they're more experienced, if that will work.
What was the question on internal control's role in TBML, or?
It's a very general question. It says how effective
Yeah,
will be
I
the
mean,
role
yes.
of internal control.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, it's a very, very general. So if you want, if you can take you can take this question, and then I will.
Yeah,
try
I'll
to
take
pick
that.
up.
I'll take this question from an AML controls perspective. I'm assuming it's around that, and that's my position as well. I can probably answer that. So there are essentially three pillars to designing an effective AML control process framework, whatever you want to call it, within an organization, be it a bank or any other regulated institution. And it always starts with having the right knowledge base. And when I say knowledge base, we are referring to people. So you need to first have knowledgeable key personnel who are knowledgeable in AML and compliance. And as we have repeatedly emphasized, it's about training and awareness, because the world of AML compliance is very dynamic, and if you are not constantly learning, then you cannot really say that you are up to date, right? And because internal controls are designed by people, and it always starts with people, and once you have established the knowledge base, then yes, it boils down to having effective processes and controls, having different processes which are independent of functions. So more often than not, you would have let's say compliance function being directed by the business. So that can be conflict of interest, and therefore it's important to have these processes and controls which are independent, and they have their own independent assessment ways. So and then while designing these controls, the use of technology should be looked at. And when we say technology, I know that we use technology a lot these days, and it to an extent that it becomes sort of like a buzzword, and people start thinking that yeah, everything, the answer is technology. But the reality is that based on the kind of business you are in, the extent of volumes that you have and process, the nature of your business should dictate the kind of technology that you should be implementing. So for certain organization, yes, artificial intelligence may be a part of internal controls, while for other organizations may not be relevant. So having that assessment, having that understanding of your business and what is required by the regulatory jurisdiction that you're part of, should help you choose the technology. But having effective controls is paramount. However, it alone will not work if you do not have the knowledge base and a lack of right technology. So I hope I've answered this question, because it's a pretty vague open question. So I've tried to answer it as efficiently as I could. And if anybody else wants to add on to that.
Asif, are you there? Hello.
Ji, we have a question from Adnan Saab for Salim Saab.
I think there are lots of questions I have
Yes,
seen on
yes.
TVML, I think. So,
Yeah.
yes.
Salim Saab, please, Adnan Saab, you can speak now.
Ji, Adnan Sahab, you can speak.
Adnan Saab, you can unmute your. Okay.
I have seen a lot of questions
Adnan
on my
Saab,
side.
you can speak now. I guess he lost. Nabil Saab, can you talk? Hello. We have unmuted your mic. Hello. Nabil Saab, can you hear us?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, do you hear me?
Yes, Nabil Saab, we can hear you.
Yeah, perfect. Hi, this is Nabil from the Middle East. I just want to know the check the over invoicing and under invoicing and like market check price, because in the UA market there is no regulatory guideline provided. So how can we validate this if any document is issued by customs, or how can we check the over invoicing and under invoicing?
Okay, I think it's relevant to my insight. Okay.
Okay.
Naveed, I think to answer your question, if you look at the framework issued by Pakistan or the guidelines issued by the state of Pakistan regarding the pricing, there are some components or the जराए बताए हैं in order to check the pricing. The number one is Google search. Okay.
Okay.
I have experienced through my initially I was in Standard Chartered and I implement this AML trade over there. That's in Pakistan. So we have been using on that side on that time the website called Alibaba, and it's a very general
Yeah.
website. It's a wholesale bank in the wholesale market in the world, biggest. So that is one of the source. I may not say that this is the only source or this is the authentic source, but this is one of the
Okay.
source. I think for me important thing is कि आप प्राइस को चेक कर रहे हैं, ठीक है? आप कहाँ से चेक कर रहे हैं? आप अलीबाबा देख रहे हैं, आपने कोई हिस्टोरिकल डाटा बनाया हुआ है अपना जो आपके बैंक्स के अंदर जो डील्स होती रही हैं, या आपके पास कोई कस्टम का डाटा मौजूद है, वीबॉक का या कस्टम का, या आपके पास कोई ऐसी एलिमेंट मौजूद है, आपको इस कस्टम की तरफ से कोई प्राइसिंग का डाटा मिलता है. The only thing is that you need to check whether this price is variant over and above तो नहीं है. I must say that बहुत ज्यादा वेरिएंस तो नहीं आ रहा. एक अगर प्राइस आपके पास आ रही है इनवॉइस पे, लेट्स टेक एन एग्जांपल ऑफ एनी प्रोडक्ट लाइक मोबाइल कॉस्ट इज $100, ठीक है, but the net is showing $90 or the $80, so it means there is a variance of $20. So we need to take the margin of that variance as well. That is my assessment. I cannot say about the UAE market or the regulator, but that is my assessment कि आपको चूंकि इसके लिए मार्जिन रखना पड़ता है या वेरिएंस रखना पड़ता है, because cannot assess the exact price of the product. क्योंकि जो सौदा हुआ है या उसकी जो डील हुई है या जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट साइन हुआ है वो आज से 2 महीने पहले 3 महीने पहले हुआ है, वो किन टर्म्स एंड कंडीशन पे हुआ है, वो क्या बल्क क्वांटिटी ले रहा है, वो कितना डिस्काउंट अवेल कर रहा है, उसकी रिलेशनशिप उसके साथ कैसी है. सो दीज ऑल कंपोनेंट काउंट्स और मे बी फ्रेट सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट सीएनएफ पे एफओबी पे, ये तमाम चीजें देख के आपको पता चलता है कि यार इसकी प्राइसिंग क्या होनी चाहिए. सो फॉर मी अगर आप उसके करीब करीब की प्राइसिंग को एसेस कर लेते हैं, आई थिंक इट्स मोर देन ओके. मतलब कोई आप डायरेक्ट प्राइसिंग चेक नहीं कर सकते और ये दुनिया में कहीं नहीं हो सकता।
Exactly, it's very difficult
इवन
as
अगर आप असेसमेंट की बात करें कस्टम की भी ना, तो कस्टम भी एक्चुअल वैल्यू असेस नहीं करता, कस्टम भी एस्टिमेटेड वैल्यू असेस करता है, ठीक है ना।
ठीक है।
सो फॉर मी दैट इज द ओनली वे टू डू इट। तो उसमें आप गूगल सर्च देख लें, कस्टम का कोई डाटा हो, हिस्टोरिकल डाटा हो, आपका अपना कोई बैंक का डाटा बन रहा हो जिसमें आप प्राइसिंग इनकॉर्पोरेट करते हो प्राइसिंग प्रोडक्ट की, तो आपके पास एक डाटा बन सकता है जिससे आप एमआईएस जनरेट कर सकते हैं और उसे चेक कर सकते
बिल्कुल।
हैं।
अच्छा सर, one more last question, who is the stakeholder who validate the price? I just want to know.
That is a very interesting question.
This is the
And a
main question. Yeah,
very simple and a very difficult question as well. Simple
exactly.
क्यों? क्योंकि कोई भी एक बंदा अपना नाम ले ले, हाँ भाई मैं करूंगा। डिफिकल्ट इसके लिए
Exactly.
कोई करना ही नहीं चाहता क्योंकि कोई ओनरशिप नहीं लेना चाहता। The point is ideally the person who is not who is processing a transaction should not check the price. That is my answer to this question. अब वो आप जिसको भी दें, आप जिसको भी कहें, वो कंप्लायंस भी हो सकता है, वो रिस्क भी हो सकता है, वो टीबीएमएल का कोई डिपार्टमेंट भी हो सकता है, वो कोई और डिपार्टमेंट भी हो सकता है, लेकिन जो बंदा प्रोसेस कर रहा है उसके हाथ में चेकिंग की अथॉरिटी नहीं होनी चाहिए आइडियली। टू
It's a conflict of interest.
डोंट हैव दैट कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट ना है, ये रीजन है।
Exactly. Sir,
चले जी,
thank you so much.
और
Thank you so much, Salim. I
Thank you,
really
thank you.
appreciate. Thank you.
France,
Any other question?
France, can you
Yes.
hear us?
Yes. जी मुझे
Yes,
सुनने में आ
please.
रहा है। Actually, my question is related to the risk
Okay.
profiling. As already we are preparing a deposit-based risk profiling, and in the PBML framework, it is required to prepare a separate risk profiling that is based on the trade transactions. So मुझे ये पूछना है कि एक तो प्रोफाइल हम डोमेस्टिक जो बना रहे हैं, अगर उसमें रेटिंग किसी कस्टमर की लो आ रही है या मीडियम आ रही है, और ट्रेड बेस्ड जो रिस्क प्रोफाइलिंग हम बना रहे हैं उसमें अगर रेटिंग उसकी हाई आ रही है, तो हमें क्या ओवरऑल एक रिस्क प्रोफाइलिंग बनानी चाहिए जो दोनों रिस्क प्रोफाइल को इंक्लूड करे? हेलो
जी,
Okay.
Asif,
Yes.
I think this question also related to TBML maybe शायद।
yes
Yes, you can.
I want to ask from Salim साहब।
अच्छा जी, चले जी। To answer your question, your answer is what I understand that there is a one profiling जो कि डिपॉजिट कस्टमर की प्रोफाइल है, and there has to be a trade profile। अगर वो ट्रेड में काम करता है तो उसकी एक ट्रेड की प्रोफाइल बननी है, ठीक है। अब एक की हाई आ जाती है, एक की लो आ जाती है, तो व्हाट शुड बी द रिस्क प्रोफाइल ऑफ दैट कस्टमर इज। ऐसा ही है सर आपका सवाल?
बिल्कुल
यही
बिल्कुल
सवाल है सर? अच्छा जी,
जी सर।
मेरी जाती राय दे रहा हूं, ठीक है। Banks should have the conservative approach. Conservative approach is कि if the rating is high and one rating is medium, the final rating should be medium. That is my assessment towards this risk assessment. But it vary from banks to banks. हर बैंक का अपना एक रिस्क असेसमेंट सिस्टम होना चाहिए या होगा, और एक रिस्क असेसमेंट की पॉलिसी होती है। वो पॉलिसी डिफाइन करे कि अगर मेरी रेटिंग डिपॉजिट पे लो है और टीबीएमएल या ट्रेड की रेटिंग हाई है, तो व्हाट शुड बी द फाइनल रेटिंग। आप दो रेटिंग एक साथ लेके चलना बड़ी डिफिकल्ट, क्योंकि आप स्टेट बैंक को किस तरह से कन्विंस करेंगे कि एक कस्टमर की दो रेटिंग है। देयर हैज टू बी वन रेटिंग, which in my opinion should be a conservative rating, and conservative rating should be the highest one, whatever the highest, whichever the highest, low और medium में जो high है वो ऊपर जा रही।
मैं सलीम इसमें अपना एक व्यू पॉइंट शेयर कर सकता हूँ। फराज अनवर बात कर रहा हूँ। सलीम, ओके, एक्सीलेंट। अच्छा, you know, I may be sounding a little differentiated over here. Pardon me, because the concept is not to criticize any requirement or not to obviously say anything about any requirement. But generally, profile जो है CRP एक होती है, which is a combination of the customer and of the products and the services that obviously he deals in, and the delivery channels that he, you know, obviously decides to transact the bank with. तो जनरली मुख्तलिफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, मुख्तलिफ जुरिसडिक्शंस में इस किस्म की कोई सेपरेट CRP फॉर ट्रेड नहीं होती है। you can create a dimensional analysis of a trade risk for a particular customer, but it does not translate into a standalone rating for trade separately. और फिर बाकी सेगमेंट्स के लिए और डिफरेंट, क्योंकि अगर आप देखें डिपॉजिट्स की बात करें, डिपॉजिट्स नहीं है ना, सिर्फ डिपॉजिट्स में पेमेंट्स भी हैं, एंड देन व्हाट अबाउट फिर एसेट बेस्ड मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग, बिकॉज ट्रेड के अलावा फिर लोन्स के भी ऊपर भी तो एसेट बेस्ड मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग है ना. सो अगर हर एक का अलग अलग प्रोफाइल बना लेंगे और हर एक का अलग अलग रिस्क निकालेंगे, फिर उसको इंटीग्रेट करेंगे, बड़ा डिफिकल्ट होता है. तो यूजुअली the CRP is holistic and it is one. So I mean, I just thought to share my own perspective. It's nothing to do with whether we should have it, we should not have it, but that's my own view.
That's fine, Farhad. I think your point of view is also well taken. I think actually, since this trade profiling जो है ना वो बिल्कुल एक नया concept है जो recently अभी implement हुआ है. अभी I think the industry is also not fully implemented this trade profiling. So अभी भी actually discussions में ही है कि होना क्या है, किस तरीके से इसको manage करना है. So that is I think the issue is there. Any
बेटर
other
आइडिया
question?
क्या हो सकता था सलीम?
जी
एक
फराज.
बेटर आइडिया सलीम ये हो सकता था कि प्रोफाइलिंग कर लें, रिस्क रेटिंग में कन्वर्ट ना करें, और रिस्क रेटिंग जो है वो होलिस्टिक हो, जो कि सारे के सारे डायमेंशंस को एड्रेस करके हो. एक ये तरीका हो सकता था, ये हो सकता है. बट एनीवे आई थिंक प्रोबब्ली द रिक्वायरमेंट इज
चले
देयर.
मैं आपसे ऑफ रिकॉर्ड इस पर डिस्कस करूंगा मैं आपसे. थैंक यू जी. एनी अदर क्वेश्चन?
We have a question from Shehzad Rahman sir. Shehzad Rahman sir, can you?
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम तो आप. अच्छा, अभी हमने डिस्कस किया है कि प्राइसिंग और रिस्क प्रोफाइलिंग वगैरह टीपीएमएल के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से काफ़ी इम्पोर्टेंट है. तो इसमें मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि क्योंकि इसमें अपेरेंटली जो है वो नॉलेज शेयरिंग और जो एक कंबाइंड नॉलेज है पूरी इंडस्ट्री का वो काफ़ी इम्पोर्टेंट है. तो उसके रिलेटेड स्टेट बैंक क्या मेजर्स ले रहा है कि बैंक्स जो है वो एक कॉमन पॉइंट पे अपनी नॉलेज शेयरिंग करें और उस नॉलेज को यूज़ करते हुए बैंक्स डिसीजन मेकिंग करें regarding pricing and risk profiling. Thank you.
It's related to me.
I think I want to जी बिल्कुल I would like to take it.
जी जोएब साहब.
You mean आप कह रहे हैं कि जी कोई इंडस्ट्री लेवल पे कोई ट्रेनिंग एंड ओरिएंटेशन के हवाले से कोई आप चीज पूछना चाह रहे हैं कि कोई स्टेटमेंट चीज कर रहा है?
जो स्टैटिस्टिक्स हैं वो एक पोर्टल पे बैंक्स एक दूसरे से शेयर करें, यानी
जी एग्जैक्टली. ये तो आपका बड़ा डेफिनेटली योर पॉइंट इज वेरी गुड. हम भी ये समझते हैं कि ना सिर्फ टीबीएमएल बल्कि बाकी काफ़ी सारी ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जिस पे इंडस्ट्री कोऑर्डिनेशन इज़ वेरी लिमिटेड. लेकिन वी आर ऑफ द व्यू, और हमने इस पर बहुत बात भी की है कि जो पाकिस्तान बैंक्स एसोसिएशन है, पीबीए है, दे शुड कम फॉरवर्ड एंड दे शुड प्ले a more active role as they are playing now. क्योंकि ये अगर उनकी लेवल पे या वहाँ पे जाके डिस्कशंस या ग्रुप्स वगैरह बन जाएं या डिस्कशंस हों, डेटा शेयर वगैरह हो, आई थिंक इट वुड बी गुड फॉर द इंडस्ट्री एज अ होल. वी हैव बीन टॉकिंग टू पीबीए, वी हैव बीन वर्किंग विद पीबीए ऑन दिस. काफ़ी सारे मामला ऐसे हैं जिसमें हम, जैसे ऑपरेशन लिस्ट का डेटा रिपोजिटरी है, वो भी है. आजकल ये जो कंज्यूमर अवेयरनेस है उस पर भी पीबीए ने मिलके पूरी इंडस्ट्री ने जो अवेयरनेस चलाई है, मैसेजेस या एडवर्टीजमेंट चलाई हैं. तो स्टेट बैंक के एंड पे वी आर परसुइंग विद द पीबीए के दे शुड टेक ऑन दिस रोल एंड प्रोवाइड गाइडेंस टू द होल इंडस्ट्री.
ये नॉर्मली देखा ये जाता है कि किसी एंड से एनफोर्समेंट हो तो फिर चीज़ें जो हैं वो इम्प्रूव होती हैं.
जी डेफिनेटली. वो क्योंकि हमारे जो फ्रेमवर्क है उसकी रिक्वायरमेंट भी है. हमने जितनी भी गाइडेंस इशू की है एमएल या सीएफटी पे, तो ट्रेनिंग एंड और जो अवेयरनेस है या डेटा शेयरिंग है वो उसका डेफिनेटली पार्ट है. तो हम उस पर उनसे पूछते रहते हैं. वी आर ऑन टू इट.
थैंक यू.
We have a question from Mr. Rahman Sharif. Can you hear us, Rahman sir?
Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Sir, first of all, thank you very much, sir, for especially I am very much thankful of Delson, and I am also very much thankful of regulators जो जिन्होंने अच्छी तरह से चीज explain की है. और I am also very much thankful of Salim Tubani sir. As usual, he has given a lot of knowledge for TBML. और सर इस मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि राइट नाउ वी आर इन द प्रोसेस ऑफ मेकिंग अ सिस्टम बेस्ड सीआरपी। तो उसमें हमें एक प्रॉब्लम ये आ रही थी कि अगर हम एचएस कोड्स के ऊपर अगर कोई हम चेक्स लगाना चाहें तो एचएस कोड्स जो है वो अराउंड 14,000 के करीब सिस्टम पे हैं। तो उसमें डीयूजी की अगर हम कोई चेक्स लगाना चाहें तो है ना, उसके लिए कोई हमें कोई गाइडलाइंस जरा प्लीज अगर एक्सप्लेन कर सके। एक ये, और सेकंड ये कि कोई इस तरह का पोर्टल अगर ना कोई डेवलप हो डेल्फी की तरफ से जिसमें हम अपने क्वेश्चन आंसर्स अपनी क्लेरिफिकेशंस वगैरह ले सकें। थैंक यू।
May I answer this?
Yes, sir, you
श्योर
can.
सर प्लीज।
अच्छा जी, रहमान साहब क्या हाल है, कह रहे थे? अच्छा, regarding
Sir.
your question of dual goods use ना, so there are companies which are providing the links जिसके अंदर जो है ना आप dual use goods आपकी जो है ना वो पॉपअप होती है और उसके अगेंस्ट आपकी जो है ना वो दिखाते हैं पॉपअप करके कि dual use goods है, फिर इसकी आप enhanced due diligence कर सकते हैं। However, जो स्टेट बैंक की गाइडलाइंस है on framework, there is a website which has been mentioned in the framework कि वो एक वेबसाइट दी हुई है, उस पे जाके हमने एक लिस्ट को डाउनलोड करना है जो कि ड्यूल यूज गुड्स की है, और उस लिस्ट को अगर आप अपने सिस्टम पे अपलोड करवाएं जो भी गुड्स हैं। अब आपका जो पॉइंट है कि एचएस कोड टू मैचिंग, देखें इसमें इशू क्या आएगा कि हर बैंक का अपना कोर बैंकिंग सिस्टम डिफरेंट है, ठीक है। हो सकता है आप अपने बैंकिंग के जो कोर बैंकिंग सिस्टम्स में एचएस कोड को इनकॉर्पोरेट कर रहे हो, कोई और बैंक शायद ना कर रहा हो, वो सिर्फ प्रोडक्ट या डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ गुड्स लिखता हो, ठीक है। तो वो जो लिस्ट है उस लिस्ट के अंदर डिस्क्रिप्शंस लिखी हुई हैं, उस डिस्क्रिप्शंस को अगर हम अपने सिस्टम के अंदर इनकॉर्पोरेट करवा दें और कोई ऐसा एक वो बना दे पॉपअप के वो इसको शो करे, तो इससे ये कंट्रोल हो सकता है ड्यूल यूज गुड्स को कंट्रोल। जी, दूसरा क्वेश्चन मुझे रहमान, दूसरा क्वेश्चन क्या था आपका?
सेकंड क्वेश्चन वाज इज इट पॉसिबल कि कोई एक ऐसा पोर्टल बना दें जिसमें हम अपनी टीबीएमएल के हिसाब से बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस आ रहे होते हैं, क्लेरिफिकेशंस चाहिए होती हैं,
आई थिंक
एक्सचेंज ऑफ व्यूज कर सकें।
जुएब साहब ऑलरेडी अभी रिसेंटली लास्ट क्वेश्चन में उन्होंने इनको आई थिंक एड्रेस किया है कि कुछ इस तरह का वो स्टेट बैंक एंगल साइट पे कुछ डेटा शेयरिंग और इस तरह की कोई चीज शायद आई थिंक जुएब साहब ज्यादा बेहतर इस पे गाइड कर सकेंगे।
Zaid sir, you can if you are available.
जुएब साहब?
जी बिल्कुल, जैसे मैंने अभी बताया कि डेटा शेयरिंग अभी तो ना हमने रिक्वायर की है ना कहीं पे हो रही है अभी इस चीज़ की। गोइंग फॉर चाहे इस पे काम हो, लेकिन हम जो है ना बड़ा इंकरेज करते हैं, वो इंकरेज पीबीए और बैंक्स के जी वो आपस में इस पे काम करें, क्योंकि इट्स समथिंग दैट विल हेल्प एवरी फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशन in complying with the regulations or in improving their TBML framework. I don't think the FIs should wait for a regulator to chip in and ये चीज करवाए, but definitely it's on our radar. We will keep pushing PBA to establish such a mechanism जहाँ पे कोई ऐसी चीज शेयर हो सके सबके फायदे के लिए।
I completely agree. I think Zaid साहब और I have received a lot of calls from each and every banks on TBML and I am trying my level best to guide them कि कोई इसमें हम क्या कर सकते हैं और क्या हमारी मतलब मेरी जितनी एक्सपर्टीज है और जितना नॉलेज है वो हम शेयर करते हैं और इंशाल्लाह करते रहेंगे। बिल्कुल जी। एनी अदर क्वेश्चन?
जी, मोहम्मद अली अकरम साहब से हम लास्ट क्वेश्चन लेते हैं, ठीक है, क्योंकि हम शॉर्टेज ऑफ टाइम पे हैं प्लीज। मोहम्मद अली अकरम साहब प्लीज।
अस्सलाम, थैंक यू फॉर माय टर्न। मेरा क्वेश्चन सिर्फ इस वक्त कोविड-19 से रिलेटेड है कि इस तरह की इस वक्त जिस तरह एम्बिग्विटी है सिचुएशन की, कोविड-19 कितने लॉन्ग टर्म चलेगा, मे बी 1 ईयर 2 इयर्स, तो आप लोग जो इंडस्ट्री एक्सपर्ट्स हैं उस पे कि व्हाट आर द 3 मेन पॉइंट्स टू पॉन्डर, मतलब मेन 3 पॉइंट्स कौन से होंगे जब हम रिस्क असेसमेंट कर रहे हो एमएल, मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग और टेररिस्ट फाइनेंसिंग रिस्क की? मेन 3 पॉइंट्स क्या हो सकते हैं इस कोविड-19 के सिचुएशन में? और सेकंड पॉइंट मेरा है ज़ुहैब साहब से कि जो पीबीए की पाकिस्तान बैंकिंग एसोसिएशन पीबीए के जो रेगुलेटरी रिपोजिटरी मिलती है हमें, उसमें अभी रिसेंटली इस ईयर 2020 से आई थिंक या 2019 से इन्होंने हायर किया ई एंड वाई को, अर्नेस्ट एंड यंग को। अब उनकी जो E&Y की रेगुलेटरी रिपोजिटरी होती है उसमें जो जिस तरह वो पॉलिसी एंड प्रोसीजर्स को और सर्कुलर्स को एक्सप्लेन कर रहे होते हैं उसमें बहुत सारी चीज़ें ऐसी होती जो उनकी अपनी अंडरस्टैंडिंग की है जो आपको उस पॉलिसी में उस रिलेटेड प्रोसीजर में या इस सर्कुलर लेटर में नहीं कहीं भी मिल नहीं रही होती। इसके लिए क्या स्टेट बैंक करेगा इन फ्यूचर? थैंक यू।
I think Faraz sir, if you can answer this, please, first question.
Which one? The first one I can answer.
Yes.
Which is 3 top priority consideration, right? Okay.
Right, COVID-19.
COVID-19 situation. It's a very open-ended question, and I would actually congratulate you on asking this because you've made our lives very difficult to encompass all our thoughts in just in just 3 bullets. मेरा पहला suggestion ये होगा कि the world it has changed the world. So सबसे पहला focus होना चाहिए customer reprofiling पे. Because all the work that you would have done in the past that could have been based on customer risk reprofiling, probably that has to be redone. So we should probably work on customer reprofiling first. And इसमें एक सवाल मैंने एक और भी देखा था that someone has asked about whether a state bank would issue guideline or direction or data cleansing. So I think that is key now, the importance of that particular project, because that is the basis for the customer reprofiling or customer profiling to be done. So that's my first suggestion. Second, my suggestion would probably be to sort of reassess the risks in all the other dimensions. So जो आपने अभी financial crime risk assessment की थी based on state bank guidelines. So probably this is the time to have a relook at that and to see whether आपकी वो assessments ठीक है या नहीं है, और whether उसमें changes की गुंजाइश है या नहीं है, and more so from the perspective of industries and from the perspectives of delivery channels. And the third and the most important bit, जिसपे काफी सारी बात भी हुई है, वो है कि how do we actually increase the ecosystem of intelligence, the financial intelligence, and the use of that financial intelligence now is key, because अगर अब भी information sharing नहीं हुई और वो जो initiative undertake किया जा रहा है PBA में, which essentially is more along the lines of the FinCEN initiative. I mean, obviously, at least the starting point is looking a bit like that. That is absolutely fundamental, because that is probably going to be the basis for any of your scenario threshold or alert optimization. So that is absolutely important, because the last bit is to make sure that the information that you're putting into the technology is able to literally enable you to conduct your operations in a much more efficient manner. Otherwise, you could compromise on the quality or the effectiveness of your AML KYC processes.
Ji, I would like to answer the point number 2. May I know the
Yes,
good
sir.
name of the question जिसने पूछा है, the person who asked the question?
Akram sir.
Akram साहब. जी जी, अकरम साहब, I mean, frankly speaking, जो आपने कहा है कि जो PBA ने हायर किया है E&Y को, I think it's that ये बैंक का अपना डिसीजन है, it's their own decision कि वो कैसे हमारे इंस्ट्रक्शन को कंप्लाई करते हैं, कौन से कंसल्टेंट को हायर करते हैं, नहीं करते हैं. If you think they have put in some things that are not anywhere found in circular, or you don't agree with them, so I think you should definitely raise it to your seniors and then to the PBA. If that is the case, then the bank is definitely exposed to more compliance risk than before maybe. तो उसका मतलब मुझसे पूछेंगे तो यही हल होगा कि बैंक इज एक्सपोज्ड एंड कल को पेनल्टी बैंक ने क्यों बर्दाश्त करनी है, वो पेनल्टी E&Y पे तो नहीं लगेगी. तो नॉन कंप्लायंस रिस्क इज बैंक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, वो चाहे किसी और से करवाएं या खुद करें. इट्स बैंक हैज टू इंश्योर के जो भी काम कंसल्टेंट ने किया है वो एज पर उसकी रिक्वायरमेंट्स या जो रेगुलेटरी एक्सपेक्टेशंस हैं उसके मुताबिक है कि नहीं. मेरे तरफ से तो आई थिंक मैं तो यही कहूँगा.
ठीक है, थैंक यू.
Thank you, Zoeb sir, and thank you all trainers for your precious time. We are ending right now because we have a lot of questions, but we cannot take it right now. If anyone has a question, you can send us at trainings@delsons.com. Okay, we have already mentioned in our chat. Okay, thank you all of you for attending, and especially trainers, all trainers. We are closing our session, and hope you enjoyed a lot and learning.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. See you. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Allah Hafiz. Have a nice day.